Welcome to the Partners Podcast, where you get exclusive behind-the-scenes access to entrepreneurs who are relentlessly building real, profitable companies. Join us as we ask them the hard questions so you can take away the mindset, strategy, and tactics that launch them to success. Welcome to the Partners Podcast. I'm joined today by my good friend and neighbor, Jack Spitzer of Epic Drone Tours. Jack, tell us a little bit about yourself. Let's do a quick introduction.
Yeah, man. Currently running Epic Drone Tours. We're a team of about 5 now, based out of here in San Diego, and we're currently shooting all across the country. Started with just shooting residential homes with FPV drones, so little custom drones that fit in the palm of your hand. And now we've expanded into shooting commercial real estate. Hotels is a big one for us as well, and a bunch of special projects along from there.
Yeah, you guys went from like pretty much 0 to 100 really quick. Like now you guys are shooting $10,000 plus projects, like crazy things I've seen on your Instagram page. Yeah. Tell me about like where you started and like how you got to where you're at. And I know we can do a little bit of a background story, but let's talk about like the business side of things. Like, what was your first project and what type of projects are you doing now?
For Epic Drone Tours specifically, our first project was actually out in Hawaii, shooting 3 different like $7 to $10 million homes. So we got super lucky at the start. I had a friend that flew FPV and wanted to work with me, and so we shot one of my neighbor's houses that was really nice, and I blasted that to a bunch of realtors, and for whatever reason sent them to Hawaii, and a luxury realtor out there was like, oh, I want to try it out, and flew us out there. And one of the houses was Justin Bieber's vacation home, which was pretty cool. And that kind of helped us break into the luxury market in LA and San Diego. So that's how we started, mostly just all homes.
Awesome.
And then
where are you at now?
Yeah, so then about a year in, we got a big gig with 3 different resorts out here in San Diego, which then really helped us kind of break into the commercial space. So then we started doing bigger projects, working with a lot of commercial brokers. We're actually heading out to the East Coast tomorrow to shoot the 5th biggest mall in the country.
Wow.
And a couple office buildings adjacent to that. So that's probably one of our biggest projects so far.
That's freaking awesome. And is that the 15K project? Is that?
Yeah.
Wow.
That is. That'll be cool.
That's cool.
Be out there for 3 days.
So what was your background like? Like, how did you become an entrepreneur? I know you were a competitive swimmer, right, at one point.
Yep.
Tell me about the evolution of Jack Spitzer. Like, who were you before Epic Drone Tours?
Yeah, so my kind of, I guess, identity for my whole life growing up was I was a swimmer. Since I was 7 years old, spent 3 to 4 hours a day in the pool. And as a little kid, I had ADHD, had a ton of energy, and needed an outlet. And so swimming was kind of my way of getting my energy out. But along with that, swimming, is not the most exciting sport when you're doing it. You can get pretty bored. So I kind of cultivated that creative energy through swimming. So I'd, be staring at a black line for hours, and that's when I would think of ideas, especially when I was like 10 years old. I'd come up with ideas for things I wanted to go, home movies I wanted to go make, or, projects and missions I wanted to do. As a kid, I started, doing lemonade stands like typical young
awesome.
Business people.
There you go.
My first real business experience was when my sister she swam at Olympic trials, which is like the biggest swim meet, and I rented a camera from the stands and took some pictures of Michael Phelps. The people were like, oh, this is pretty good. And so I set up at like local sporting events, would set up a booth, have a friend come be, the booth manager, and I would shoot. Parents would pay me to shoot their kids.
Wow.
And that's kind of that was my first big experience with customer service, dealing with difficult people. Parents can be pretty picky. And that got my feet wet in business going to college.
Very cool. And then why Epic Drone Tours? Like, why did you start an FPV drone company? Like, you had experience doing sport, like media. What did you go to college for? So
I went to college for business, but I was there to swim, and I was there to network and meet people. Uh-huh. So in college, I got a big job, photography gig, shooting for the biggest global swimming news site, SwimSwam. And so I got to go to the Olympics and shoot a bunch of big big athletes and stuff there. But I always knew I kind of wanted to do something a little bit more than just photography. I have I'm super passionate about business. Wanted to make a little bit more money than you can as a photographer. You can do good as a photographer, but it's kind of capped. and I just wanted a little something more. And then so during COVID, I kind of bounced around. I had a marketing agency, had a couple different clients, creating Facebook ads and video, of course, for them. And then a guy that I went to elementary school with that I hadn't talked to in like 10 years was flying FPV. And so I partnered with him because I had seen some people were starting to use FPV more than for just racing. And I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. And so we reached out to my neighbor who has a really nice big house up on a hill and brought him in. We filmed the house and then that's how it started.
That's how it started. And then you went to Hawaii for your first project. Tell me about some of the progression, because you and I have interacted a few times. Like as you've grown your company. I remember that one time you came to my apartment and you were like, I think I got a pretty big deal. What was that deal? And then what do we make of it? How do we transform that?
Yeah, that was back in March of 2021, which is right when we started. February was the Hawaii shoot. So I was I forgot that was that early when I first met you. With that, I think I talked to you about kind of taking that, being most people when they start a real estate photo or video company, they usually work their way up. I'll shoot a $500,000 house, then $1 million house. We kind of just, flew past that, and you, I think, recommended, go reach out to people in LA, and that, kind of streamlined us into Beverly Hills, which at first I don't think our product was that good. I think it was just the fact that it was FPV. Yeah. It was a selling point, like, oh, we fly our drones indoors, and people like that. But over the last year and a half, we've really cultivated our product, figure out what works and what looks good. So now it's a lot better than it was.
I remember you were talking to me in my living room one time about like 3 videos for a hotel, and you were going to charge $10K. Yeah. What did you end up getting instead?
Well, it's kind of the reverse. We were gonna charge, I think, like $2,000 or $3,000. That was a lot of money for us at the time. And both you and then my old roommate were like, "You're stupid, dude. These people have a huge marketing budget, and your product is worth a lot more than that." And so we charged, I think it was $25,000 for all 3 hotels, which I even think was actually still a little low. But they loved it. They have used all the videos on all their platforms, and that's gotten us more gigs with hotels. So
that's amazing. Yeah. So literally from nothing more than a mindset shift, right?
Yeah.
You charged 10x of what you were planning to charge.
It was literally just putting it on paper, nothing else. So that we didn't change.
One more zero.
Right.
One more zero. That's cool.
We didn't change any of what we were going to shoot. The exact same stuff. It was just knowing your worth, I guess.
So tell me a little bit more, like about investing in mentorship, investing in like coaching. Like how's that been a part of your life?
Yeah. Well, I like to say that the entire reason that Epic Drone Tours exists is from finding mentors. The biggest investment that I ever made was into a program called Scaling with Systems back in 2020. I think it was like 10 or 12,000, which was, I didn't have that money at the time. So it was a lot. And the entire foundation that the company was built on was what we learned in there with systems, processes, having, coaching calls every single week. We could go on and ask, we had a whole community of people that we could talk to. I learned all of our like outreach systems from them and from Ravi, the guy that runs it. So that was huge. And then, from there, I wanted to kind of expand out of there. I met you, which was awesome. You've been a great mentor to me because you've built Aerial Canvas and now Acre. I know that when you have knowledge, you can only go so far yourself. And I've always been kind of the guy, especially in college, I was the guy that would always schmooze, as people would say. I would go up and if somebody was ahead of me in life, I'd go ask them questions, talk to them, how'd you get there, what'd you do? And I always got looked down on for doing that. But, I'm a big believer in surrounding yourself with people that have done what you want to do. And, I hate people that have too big of egos to ask for help. Like, oh, I don't need to ask this guy a question, or people that are just scared. Like I can go up to anybody and ask a question. And
you mentioned like being looked down upon for asking questions. Like, what do you mean? Like, is there like certain people that, because like for me, that's all I know. Like my entire life, I've asked questions. People that ask questions and listen first have always been, people I look up to. Where, I guess, who looks down on people at like approaching in that manner?
Nobody in particular, but I think there are just people that live life, the normal way that, they get a job, they have their family, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I'm always trying to push to the next level, and I'm just also a super curious person. I think curiosity is the biggest strength that somebody can have, and that curiosity leads to me. If I see somebody that has an amazing job, or that built a good company, or that's is doing something really cool, I'm going to go up and talk to them no matter what. Yeah. And I think that the majority of people would not do that because whether they're scared.
I'm just like you, brother. Like I if I see someone crushing it, killing it, like the first thing I think about is like, how did you get there? What do you do? Like, tell me about like your product, your systems, your people, your team, your company. I have like 10 questions when I meet someone successble.
I've got a good story for you. I don't know if I actually even told you this. Back in college, we were holding a swim clinic at my college, and there was a couple kids that were there from New York, and their parents were there, and I was there, as a coach, whatever. But I started befriending the moms. I like to talk to people, and we're talking to them, and it turns out one of them lived in, I think it was like the second most expensive home in America at the time. That's what my coach told me. He's like, oh, you should go talk to these people. I was like, oh, cool. So I talked to them, and their kid was a really gifted swimmer. So I basically asked her, I was like, I would love to come coach him more in New York. And she was like, oh yeah, cool, that'd be cool. But I didn't think anything would come of it. So then the next week, I think I Snapchatted her son. It's like, do you think your mom would actually take me out there? So he's like, yeah, of course. So they flew me out first class to New York, to the Hamptons, and I stayed with them and coached him for a week in one of the most beautiful pieces, a home that's greater than any of the 50 whatever $1 million houses we've ever shot. It's my favorite house I've ever been in. They did a great job. And then on the last day, I was taking photos with the camera I brought, just a little, I think it was a Canon T2i or something. And she actually cried. She was so happy about them. Like, oh, you need to be a photographer. This is your calling. You need to do this. And what can we do to help? And so then basically I had pitched to them, like, I want to be a photographer. I want to get to the next level, but I don't have the money to get a nice camera. And so they were generous enough to buy me the nicest camera on the market, Canon 1DX Mark II, and a lens. And they wired a large amount of money to my camera shop. And that's kind of what took me to the next level, was having that ability to ask for help. And I have no idea what my next, having that camera, I know not all about the gear, but that was the best camera on the market. And my photos were 10 times better after that. And
that's awesome. So, and you shot at the Olympics, right?
Yeah, which I would not have gotten the gig that got me to the Olympics without having that camera and having that next step
right
forward.
Here, we got the hat right here. Can I touch it?
Yeah.
Look at it. Tokyo 2020. He went to Tokyo to shoot like swimmers and
I shot 10 different sports while I was there. I had an all access pass. 10 different sports, like basketball, track and field, swimming, equestrian, badminton, which was crazy. So it was the best 2 weeks of my life. And I slept 2 hours a night the whole time, but it was awesome.
That's awesome.
And you guys were watching it on TV and sent me some videos. That was fun.
Yeah, that was so cool. So let's move a little bit into like some more like technical aspects of your business.
Yeah.
Who's on your who's on your team? Like, what's your team comprised of? How do you get business, and how do you like talk to me about your team and how you get business and deliver the product?
Yeah, for sure. So right now I'll start from the beginning. So first was Mark. He's our head drone pilot, the guy that shot in Hawaii in the original houses with us. So he's based in San Diego. So he shoots all of our San Diego content. Pretty early on, we then hired Mo, who's our LA videographer. He's the most busy by far. Most of our work is in LA. Realtors love us out there. And so we have those are our two main creative specialists, or whatever you want to call them. Drone pilots is what we call them. And then about 6 months in, I started working with Zach, who's like my best friend from college. He was an engineer major in college, but realized he did not want to be an engineer, as most engineers realize. So Zach took over the outreach at the beginning. He had another year of school, so he just did that kind of part-time for a while. And then this past year, about a year ago, he started full-time, and now he's our COO, so he manages all of our systems and processes. He's got like over 100 different Zapiers. Zapier is a great tool for any business owner. It's definitely slept on. It's an automation software. So we have automation set up from when we send an email until the client is done.
Yeah.
We even have a Zapier that sends them a satisfaction review after. As far as how we get our clients now, the majority is through email. So we're sending probably 300 to 400 emails a day to, I think, 5 different industries. And that's all 100% automated. It's just Zach goes in there in the morning, selects, which industry is going to be sent and how many emails. And he finds those through LinkedIn and through a software called seamless.ai, which just can source a bunch of different info about a client or a prospect. And we do that. We send Instagram messages, and now we actually just started running Google and Facebook ads as well. So
Nice.
Now we're ramping up the advertising part of it.
What's been the best return on investment at your business?
It's probably Seamless. We started that right at the beginning, but it's the ability of it to find somebody's email and their phone number and their address in their, it's almost like they give you their social security number. It's kind of wild how many things it gives you. But when we can just go on LinkedIn, put in a LinkedIn Sales Navigator with it, I guess. We can go in there, put any job filter, any business, and it will give us 1,000 leads right there. And I don't think there's anything else we could pay for that would be that.
That's too cool.
That effective.
Nice. Tell me about the process from now you're sending out these emails, you're getting the leads in. Some of them are signing up with you to have a meeting.
Yep.
Talk to me about what's a success story look like from meeting to deal to delivery?
So majority we get on a call with people at all times. We go on Zoom. That's still myself. We're working on training up a closer to take over that role. Success story is going from email. Then we send them some examples of let's say a hotel. And one I can think of was a hotel up in LA. We had a quick call with them and showed them our slide deck, talked to them about what we do, and then right on the call they scheduled. I think it was 2 weeks after the call. They were like, okay, scheduled. Boom. They paid in full beforehand, and we spent 2 days on the property getting a bunch of different shots, and they were super happy with it.
Nice. Boom. From an email to
right.
Many thousands of dollars.
Many thousands of dollars on that one, yeah. But it's not always that easy. We also had we had another hotel in LA where the GM I had been messaging for, I think it was 9 months. Once a week, I'd send him a message. We talked back and forth. He was interested the whole time, but that kind of client that's like, oh yeah, let's do that soon. Never actually pans out. And eventually, I was finally able to give him a price that he jumped on and wanted to do it right away, and we got the shot. And so it's a mix of both the automation, but then also putting in the work between myself and our team, just sending messages and following up with clients.
Makes sense. So tell me about the biggest challenge that you have faced that you've been able to overcome. And I'll have a follow-up question after that. Sure. The biggest challenge you faced at Epic Drone Tours to date, and how did you overcome it?
You want that to be broad or a specific case?
It can be as specific or broad as you want. Whatever is going to be something that could benefit our audience, that might be other agency owners that are dealing with problems that they have to overcome.
I'll give you both. One, it was trying to expand into too many different types of shoots all at once. So right at the beginning, I wanted to shoot every single thing all the time, but then we were way too spread thin between all of our resources. So we decided, nope, we're going to stick to just residential for this, at least until we get a solid amount of monthly revenue and, consistent work for our team. And that, that's what we did. And eventually now we can go and have 3 different industries that we're prospecting to much more efficiently and not just blowing money and sending 1 million emails to 1 million different people all at once. So that's kind of the broad challenge, was, narrowing it down at first before you expand too fast. And then the specific case was, we had one of the biggest realtors in LA. We did a big shoot with them. It was huge for us. And he came back and said, in my 30 years of working in real estate, this was the worst piece of marketing I have ever seen. Which, I typically don't hear the good feedback, and I don't really hear the bad feedback either because of that. So I was unfazed. I was like, okay, well, let's sit down, let's figure out why. And within a week, we were able to get him from saying that was the worst video he has ever seen in 30 years to then saying, wow, you guys turned it around. I had no hope that this could be turned around. He wanted to just, pay the invoice and be done. But he came back and said he loved the video after all the revisions and reshoot and all that. And he even complimented me he's like, I see myself in you with how good you take care of your clients. And I think that extra bit of resiliency is kind of rare. I think most people would have taken that feedback and said, okay, pay and be gone, never talk to you again. But I guess I never take no for an answer. I'm always gonna.
That reminds me of a story of when I was at Fixit, my first company. It was a little bit even more dramatic than that. I had one of my technicians, we fixed phones and computers. He came up to me and he was just like, I don't know who this guy John is, but like, I don't want to do any work for him. We should just send his computer back to him and tell him to take his business somewhere else. And I'm just like, whoa, like you're one of my like nicer technicians and you're feeling some type of way. This guy must be an absolute asshole. Like this guy must suck for you to bring this out to my attention. And I was just like, okay, well, let me give the guy a call. And so supposedly we were trying to do some data recovery for him and trying to get him on recommended him this one product, and he's like, hey, are you sure I can get my data back? And we weren't making any promises, but trying to charge him double or something. So not to overcomplicate it, called the guy John. I was like, hey John, I'm trying to understand what the situation is. Like you're upset with us. My team is a little bit aggravated as well. Talk to me. And what I did was I just listened to him for 10 minutes, 20 minutes straight. And then I let him talk and let him be heard. And he ended up spending over $1,000 with us.
Nice.
On that project,
After talking to you.
Yeah, because I said, hey, based off what you're looking for, the value of the data you're trying to recover, I think it's worth taking this chance. And if we can't get it for you, like we're not going to charge you any extra. Like I understand you're not trying to pay for no results. And we got the data back. We sold him on a upgraded hard drive, and he was super stoked. And I think he ended up sending us more business afterwards. But we were able to take a client from completely like, shit, this might be like a 1-star review, and I have an employee that wants to turn down business because he doesn't like someone based off how they've been interacting, to a lifelong client.
To making money
and making money.
Yeah. That's awesome.
So that just reminds me of that story. So I wanted to tell that.
Yeah, thank you.
And let's jump into some of the the future. Like let's think 10 years out, 5 years out. Like 10 years out is too far. 2 years out. Where do you see Epic Drone towards? How do you see it growing? Like who do you see you bringing in? Have you considered more partnerships, more like collaborations? Like how do you? What's your plan to grow Epic Drone towards, and where do you see it going?
Yeah. Well, my tendency is always to try to go to the next big thing, while also focusing on what works. But our big plan now, I won't share too many details, but the typical next path for people that fly FPV is to get into the film, broadcast, TV world. So we're making a pretty big investment into a couple big pieces of gear that are gonna, I think, get us into the next level, which is, we'll be able to shoot car commercials. We'll be able to shoot, live sporting events. We actually are in talks with the Padres about doing quite a few different projects related to that. So breaking into that sphere where we can charge, a typical yearly salary in one day for a project, because these, people like the NFL, NBA, MLB baseball they have the budgets to pay for that kind of stuff. Or, let's say Hyundai, Honda, they spend a fortune on ads. Yeah. And if you can be the vendor that can provide that creative and that TV service, you can do some great things. And it's super cool. I'm a super creative guy. I love just doing cool things, and that's kind of that's the path I think we're going down.
Awesome. Well, I know we're coming up on time. You and I are trying to grab a nice lunch. So let's ask one more question. One more really powerful question. What's your why? What motivates you? What drives you to do everything that you do?
Yeah. So the story I always like to say from where my why originated was when I was 10. My dad was deployed in Iraq for a year, and the way that I communicated with him for that entire time was through creation. So I had a camera, a little point and shoot that I would make little videos of, take photos of, whatever I was doing during the day. and that kind of cultivated into my love for capturing the moment. I love being able to take something and put it into, make it a piece of history for somebody. And that has led to pretty much every career that I've had so far is about capturing a moment and solidifying it in the world. And so I guess that's my why, is being able to take something and make it last forever.
That's awesome.
That's magic.
That's great. Yeah. And thank you so much for joining our podcast today. For those who want to check out Jack at Epic Drone Tours, we're going to be dropping his Instagram handles above. I don't know where it is, somewhere. And yeah, what's your website?
EpicDroneTours.com.
EpicDroneTours.com. Watch out for Jack. He's doing big things with his team. I've seen some amazing work come out, and the quality and the product just keeps getting better. So if you're in real estate, if you're a company looking for FPV, this is one of your guys to go to. Thank you so much.